Well, I'm really pleased to introduce our new guests for this week. It's Claire and Del, and I'm going to leave them to introduce themselves and their appointment. Claire and Del, could you tell us just a little bit about where you're located?
Yeah, hi everyone. Claire and I are stationed in the sunny Welsh town of Aberystwyth. For those of you who are unaware of the geography, Aberystwyth is on the west coast, so close to the Irish Sea, right in the middle of Cardigan Bay. It's a beautiful Victorian seaside town, but actually not far from town. You've only got to drive 5 minutes, 6 minutes in the car, and you're literally in the middle of nowhere. So we are a town appointment, but in a quite a rural setting.
So within that rural setting, what was a typical day or week in ministry before lockdown came about? What was normal life like?
A typical week would be a very busy core programme. We are one of the hubs of the community here, and from our building we run cafe, Bible study, prayer breakfast, student fellowship, cafe church, Sunday worship time, lots of visiting, admin, networking. We're both caseworkers for a national farming community organisations, so that's great. And behind we have what we call the army behind the army. We have a group of 21 great committed volunteers. So it's very busy, it's very hubbub, and yeah, it was good in normal times.
Pleasure. I think we're having a little bit of problem with your video. It's just a bit jiggery, but it should be all right. So what are you doing now that's perhaps different? How has the lockdown impacted the sort of way that you're doing ministry? Are you still doing the same sort of stuff, or has it had to change dramatically?
No, I mean, unfortunately, it has changed quite dramatically. Everything is different. Our building is actually closed. We are fortunate in the town that we have a food bank that isn't run by the Salvation Army. And I understand that quite a lot of people, that's why their hall is open, is so they can provide a food bank. We don't do that. We did for a couple of weeks before the latest set of rules were introduced, run cafe as a takeaway service. But that wasn't really working for us, mainly because the people who come to us, the reason they come to us is because they want to spend time together. They don't actually come for the food or the coffee. All the time that the building was open, we had people who wanted to come to meet with each other. So we had to close, as sad as that was for us.
Yeah.
We have no worship gatherings, just like all other Salvation Army expressions across the UK and Ireland at the moment. So our gatherings don't happen. We are still, Claire and I are still pastorally seeing people on a one-to-one basis. As we've explained, some of the geography, it tends to involve like driving somewhere and then standing at someone's front gate and waving to them. But we're doing that a little bit. But obviously, even that isn't as regular as our contact with those people used to be. In terms of teaching, we've tried to do most of that electronically, and our student fellowship group is normally called Chat and Chow, because that's exactly what we do. We get together and we chat and we chow, we eat. Well, that has gone completely virtual now, so no food is involved, and it's literally just a teaching time and a fellowship time for our students. That actually we have far more people engaging with that stuff that we're doing electronically, that stuff that we're doing online, than actually ever come into the building. So I'll give you a for instance. We might usually have just under 30 on a Sunday morning. Well, on Mothering Sunday, we had 50 people listen to our online sermon.
Wow.
Obviously, that we are, in that sense, having far more impact than we physically have. So it's not all negative. There are positives. And I think the key thing for us at this time is we actually need to find those positives. And in terms of moving the kingdom work forward, we actually need to use those positives where we can.
Yeah, exactly. And what you're doing there is just kind of taking the situation and the positive methods of outreach, and you actually seem to be reaching a lot more people than you would normally do in the building, which is great. So you said that you are getting a little bit of sort of face-to-face from a distance sort of contact with people. Who do you see in your town as being the most affected by the lockdown, and how are they being affected by the lockdown? What are the effects of the lockdown on these particular people?
Aberystwyth have been able to go home, and we're left with a really quite elderly population throughout the whole county. Aber is the only Salvation Army presence in the whole county of Ceredigion. So the elderly are really affected. They're quite strong characters, and so they're quite determined, and they will get through this, but they're very affected. We have lots of people who are shielding. They come in the shielding category, so they're not even out for their exercise time because they are carers for people, or they've got health issues themselves. But this whole lockdown came at such an awful time for our farming community. Lambing was taking place, so that had a huge impact. And then just to see our farmers literally throw milk down the drain is quite heartbreaking. And they've spent a lot of time making cheese, producing great cheese, and they're just having to give it away because there's no way to sell it. So that's really hard affected.
Yeah. It's quite interesting when you kind of talk about the farmers as well, and that's the local economy sort of impacted, really, isn't it? And along with your elderly sort of neighbourhood as well. Now we know that we've just talked about those that are being affected by the lockdown. But of course, ministers and key workers aren't exempt from the effects and the challenges of lockdown. So how are you both? How have you been dealing with the lockdown yourselves?
Yeah, we're doing okay. That's the truth of it. There are now, with our teenage children, one was away at university, and fortunately she was able to come home before the lockdown was enacted. Our 16, so we have a smallish Salvation Army house with basically 4 adults in it. But aside from the stresses of it's okay. We are doing okay. I mentioned our younger teenager. Well, he is one of the people who's affected by actually not being able to sit his GCSEs. And so obviously that's a stress of its own. So he's unsure really what August is going to bring, when he would normally be picking up his results. But we are grateful that the four of us are thus far have been unaffected by the virus. In terms of the church that we lead, we haven't actually had an awful lot of impact amongst the church fellowship either. And as we said, I mean, quite a church fellowship are very elderly and very vulnerable. So the fact that they haven't been affected is great too.
Well, that's good, and it's good to hear that both of you are doing well as well. So finally, we obviously want to be able to spend some time during our Sunday worship praying for you. And so is there anything we can focus specifically on in prayer towards you and your appointment in these days to come?
These are really strange days that are coming up, really. When first started, all those weeks ago, they closed the roads. So Ceredigion has done very well, and we've only got about 7 or 8 cases in the whole of the county. So that's just brilliant. But as lockdown eases differently in England to how we are in Wales, some are crossing the border and coming in, and tempers are getting a little frayed. And so pray for that. We need the holiday makers. Our economy, our town needs the holiday makers, but not yet, just not yet. Wales is still on a lockdown now for another 3 weeks. And so we just really hope that tempers will go lower, and that will be great. But really, we want to pray that our online congregation that we've suddenly found will really find Jesus through all of this. And they'll never come into our building, probably. We'll have to keep going with this online stuff that we're very new at. But pray for them that they will know the hope and the peace and the love that the Lord Jesus Christ brings.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much for joining me in this way and just sharing something of your ministry and how lockdown affects life in Wales, and particularly in that beautiful place that you live in, Aberystwyth. So thank you so much. I know, it's always a tongue twister, but thank you so much for joining me today.